Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Midnight Festival podcast, a late-night talk show focused around the discussion and analysis of video games. I'm Jade, host 1 out of the 3 total hosts on our show.
I'm Kaiwa, the second of third hosts.
And I'm Cole, I'm the third of 3 total hosts for tonight.
Tonight, we're going to be talking about CrossCode, a retro-inspired 2D RPG, a love letter to the 16-bit era. This game is a bit of an action-based role-playing game with very heavy puzzle elements, level up mechanics, equipment, skill trees, kind of standard RPG fare, but with an action-based coat of paint. I had a really good time with this game. I'd assume that you both had the same experience, somewhat.
Yeah, I did have a really good experience with the game, but I also struggled with it a lot. I found that it was a very difficult game. The puzzles were powerful.
Powerful puzzles. Yeah. How about you, Cole?
The puzzles, I really liked the puzzles in this game, mostly because they were mostly logic puzzles, very Zelda-like, in the way that you interacted with stuff, but like an adult Zelda in that respect. So
hard. There
were definitely some hard ones in there for sure that could take multiple dozens of minutes to just wrap your head around, but I liked that.
Yeah, I liked certain puzzles in the game, but I remember there was a certain point when the puzzles got substantially harder. I think it was once you get to that jungle area, I really started having extreme difficulty with the puzzles. And I was just like, oh, it must be a fluke. It must be just this one dungeon that was just way harder.
Yeah.
But then I had no idea what was to come.
Yeah, I had some qualms with the puzzles as well, but yeah, I had a similar experience with that Jungle Zone Chapter 8. But
stuff really seems to pick up there in a lot of respects.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I found, maybe this is getting a little too into the nitty-gritty mechanically too, but one of the things I found was that the game was kind of hard in combat, because you have both your player level and then your gear level, and it's pretty damn easy to get under leveled in your gear, which really affects your combat prowess. And unless you spend a lot of time hitting farming, hitting plants, or by killing guys for a long time to get a combat streak, to get higher drop materials, drop rate stuff increases if you have a higher combat rank, which is
like when you have to be in an active killing spree in order to get those deep rewards from the plants and rocks
and just the drops of the enemies as well. And I found it was kind of hard for me because I'm not, I don't know. I was just was playing through the game. I did quite a bit of side quests, but I didn't, really put a lot of time into farming equipment and stuff. And I found that it was pretty challenging combat wise.
There's definitely some spikes in the difficulty, especially I think at the garden, like we said, where you were given the different elements that you can use to counter enemy resistances and exploit their weaknesses, and you have to be swapping between those pretty frequently, and they change your entire move set, and they give you different resistances when you switch to them. It's almost like your mind is going 100 miles a minute. Yeah. Sitting here trying to work out the combat, which is a fast-paced puzzle in and of itself.
Yeah, and certain enemies can only be, killed by certain element types.
Yeah, they all have weaknesses and resistances and whatnot.
Yeah, and honestly, it feels like the game kind of starts out very simple, and the difficulty just ramps up. You can gauge it perfectly by how many elements you have, because the more elements you kind of collect along the way, the more combinations of like these elemental attacks you'll need to defeat these enemies. And the game's willing to throw harder and harder foes at you.
I thought it was a decent progression curve, honestly, but I'll always just say that garden where they introduce the choice of whichever you prefer first, but they introduce two elements at the same time, and so they know that they have to give you obstacles that utilize both of them. I'd say that was the biggest leap for me in the game, but otherwise I thought it was pretty smooth because you usually only have to rely on the one element you get in that area.
Yeah, I didn't have too many issues with combat until that point, until the jungle and subsequent.
And then you started getting gear checked. Huh?
Yeah, I started getting hard checked with my gear for sure. But that was just kind of an interesting thing. I don't know, like
I doing side quests and just killing enemies along the way. I don't know how similar my experience is for you guys, but I think that my gear was always a little underleveled, but it was decently on par. But I didn't go out of my way to do any enemy chains or anything either. Mm-hmm. I was just doing the side quests, and it seemed okay until maybe the last third of the game, and then gear just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, your skill can only take you so far too. You need those numbers. You need those numbers to do good damage.
They make fights kind of a slog if you can't be dishing out damage, and I thought there was some interesting ways to get around having low gear, though.
Yeah.
Like all the different food buffs, and as your skill tree opens up.
Yeah, how is the eating, boy? How is your eating build?
I was about to say, I ate my way through Bloodstained, and I ate my way through CrossCode as well. The easiest way to overpower the enemies in the game for me, like always, go to the nearest restaurant, buy yourself a nice meal or two, go right back into the fight, and now that boss is a piece of cake.
I'm curious how that works out for you in this game, though, because they have a check in place for food buffs. You can only eat one thing every 10 seconds or so, and they cap the amount of buffs you can get from them.
Yeah, and you can be interrupted.
Yep.
Yeah. That was the hardest aspect for me. Yep, there's an animation. Different foods have different eat times. But yeah, that was just a minor obstacle for me. I'd still find a way to get that food into my mouth one way or another in battle.
You did a food build? You were speccing into all the consumable things, or what?
No, I didn't actually spec into any consumables. I just overstocked.
Okay, yeah.
So if I was so pressed to find good gear throughout the game that I was not really building as many things. I was just trying so hard to keep my gear at max level possible, because I was leveling up so fast and advancing through the game pretty quickly as well. And then all the time the enemies were just exponentially more powerful for me. But that's again the food build, when you're spending all of your money and time collecting food items instead of gear items.
Yeah.
This was another game for me where I thought food, they're consumables and you won't need them, so then I never used them, or I rarely used them, and I ended up with just a massive stock of items that I never would use.
And then, some food items were consumable or were used to build gear and stuff.
Yeah.
So you had to be careful about eating certain foods, or you just wouldn't be able to construct this epic piece of gear.
Not easily, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some creative ways to get around some of that stuff though too, like wave. There's 4 elements for you can get 4 elemental sort of augments to your skills and your abilities in the game. There's a fire element, an ice element, an electric element, and then wave, which is like a sound wave or something.
That one was weird.
Wave, I remember one of the wave abilities. Oh yeah, and you go down these different trees on each of them too, which basically you have 2 different choices for each of your attacks, essentially, for how, what kind of skills you want. And I remember the wave one for the shooting skills. There was one where you shot a bunch of balls out, and then you'd absorb health for all the damage you did. And so I did that instead of eating. Like, I would just shoot the fuck out of guys and to heal up big time. And
for that reason, I have to say that wave was my favorite element.
Ooh, yeah, okay. Wave's your
that
favorite?
was the tanky element for sure.
Yeah. Wave had the longevity, Wave was good.
And once you get far enough down one of those lines, lines of attacks, that is, you unlock the sort of ultimate attack for that tree.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved the one for wave. You just shoot this mega huge... it was called Karma.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And you would just blast out this massive shot that would hit an enemy. It would show you the trajectory of the path, so if you wanted to like do a trick shot, slows time for you, and you blast this mega damage attack into the enemy, and I've never seen it not one shot whatever it touched.
Whoa.
So...
That's badass. Yeah, I didn't get that
The skill
far.
tree was very cool.
The skill tree was way cool.
They had, in each one had, not only you could go down those lines and choose the ones that diverge, you could choose, I want the maximum power version of this or this, but they each had one where it was almost like an ultimate skill that combined everything from the two paths. You didn't even need to choose. This one would go straight out from the center, and that's how you knew. And the wave one was the block one. It just, if you wanted to heal, that was the way to go, I thought.
Well, I gotta be honest, I never... Alright, first I'm gonna say, another cool thing about the skill tree was that you can swap freely. Like, you didn't have to spend points. So if you wanted to try the other skills, you could just swap between them for free, which is way cool. That was very nice. But I never used guard skills, and I never used dash skills. Ever.
I think that's fair, and there's some reasons for that for me as well.
Yeah, so I'd never used the guard one or the block skill or whatever on anything. I never used the dash skills either. I don't know how much of a handicap that was, but I got through the game. I got through it.
Yeah, the only guard skill I personally ended up using was the neutral element guard skill.
Which one?
Just because, I guess I should specify which tree. The one where it's just a permanent overshield for you, and it just sticks around. Well, not a permanent, it just sticks around for like maybe 20 seconds or so, and then goes away, but it just decreases all damage you take during that time. So ultimate tank ability.
That one sounded good, but it's probably one of the few I never even tried to use. I just kept accidentally doing the other one over and over every time I wanted to do my dash skill.
Yeah, guarding in general, though, to be honest, seems like kind of a moot skill overall, because you still take damage from the attacks. I guess the only
unless you do
true
a perfect
benefit,
guard or whatever.
I don't know.
Yep, a perfect guard, I suppose, it's kind of like the counter of this game that in certain enemies you kind of needed to use that counter.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of success with basic guards in that game, and I really, really liked the skill. I think it's called Royal Guard, because if you had, let's say, for example, the bird enemy in the garden that would shoot a machine gun at you, and if you timed your guard and got a perfect guard on the first bullet, the rest of them would just hit the shield like normal, unless you had this Royal Guard or whichever skill, I forget the name exactly, and then you could perfect guard the first one, and the rest come so fast that they're also completely nullified. Had to have it, personally.
Yeah, interesting. Yep, I never guarded. I just dashed around.
Yep, dashing in invulnerability windows.
Mm-hmm.
And just moving out of the way of some very obvious projectiles a lot of the time can be enough to stop you from taking any damage at all, whereas you have to pull out this perfectly timed guard. Yeah, I don't know. It could just be a little difficult, so maybe guarding is an elite sort of style of combat.
Gamer.
I had a lot of fun doing both, I'll say that much. They were both very useful in different situations.
I think, the combat was...
a little bit if you weren't guarding.
The combat was awesome. Like, it was really fun. It was so fast-paced. It felt so good when you're like cleaving through enemies, like especially in just regular combat situations. Not bosses per se, but I think normal fights were always really really fun. And you know what? I wish they had more of in the game. PvP fights.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
those duels were like so intense. They were so good.
They really were.
And it was like one of the problems I have with, I don't know if it's really a problem with bosses per se, but one of my qualms, I guess, is that bosses are just kind of like puzzles too. They don't really feel like bosses. They just feel more like maybe save for a few bosses, but there were some that were just like, it's the boss thing. It's always the boss thing in games like Zelda. You know, you have to hit the guy, 3 times. You have to expose his weak spot 3 times and hit it 3 times. But otherwise you have to throw a bomb when he reveals his thing. Or like there's all these dumb puzzle things like that. And there's like, CrossCode has basically the exact same thing with health bars. They section them off. So once you reveal the enemy's weak point and are able to attack them, even if you save up your skill points for a huge mega blast, you can't get it past a certain threshold. You can't damage them past a certain threshold. So then you're just sitting there waiting for another phase of the fight to expose the weak point again. Even though you could have damaged it past then. But it just, sometimes I felt like I was just waiting around a lot in boss fights in the game. But for normal fights and those PvP fights, like I was on edge, and the combat felt so responsive and just so good.
Yep, the PvP fights were pretty awesome. I have to say they weren't like the boss fights at all. Only the only thing that would stop you from just going all out on an opponent is simply just beating them down and then having to do that again and like another 5 times to win that PvP match. So
yeah,
there's a lot to be said about the PvP, I think.
Yeah, the PvP was interesting for sure. Very interesting. It was like a whole different style of gameplay almost than anywhere else in the game.
Yeah, they should have definitely had more. I messed up for sure, and I had reloaded because I wanted to perfect the first PvP, and I didn't really realize how it does play differently than bosses, but even regular encounters, because you can't just wildly swing. They specifically are avoiding you, and you have to wait for an opening. It's very hard to catch them out otherwise.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about PvP fights too, is because they switch up. Like Apollo will switch his elements too and do different attacks, which will leave him open at different times. And then sometimes those openings are feints, and he'll be like, fucking idiot, and he'll like perfect guard you and punish you for trying to exploit his opening. They were just like really fun. It was super intense. I wish there were just a little bit more of those against maybe someone other than a Spheromancer, but they probably only balanced the game around the Spheromancer character class, because this game is taking place in an MMO world, and you're in a game. We neglected to say that.
You're playing a game in a game.
You're playing a game, you're in an MMO, you're logged into an MMO with character classes, and I'm sure that they only really balanced the game around Spheromancers, even though there's like 5 classes or something like that, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, and they all have their own distinct skills and skill trees, allegedly.
Yeah, but it's funny, if we're looking at this from an MMO standpoint, all the gear is the exact same for every class. So like, wizards will have like the same blades and Spheromancer weapons and gear, even though they're like supposed to be clothies, But
well, I'm sure there's some excuses to be made for that, but you can definitely tell. Oh, I'm playing an actual offline game where they're only catering to Spheromancer.
Well, you know what? One of my favorite games, everyone knows, .hack. They actually
love that one.
They actually had different gear for different character classes, so I don't know.
I mean,
some that you could never.
I won't get into an MMO spiel, but it's very easy to only show equipment for your own class in like a shop, or to have it drop or something.
No, but if you look in their gear, If you look
Oh
in
yeah,
their
because you
friend's
can see
gear,
other people's gear. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true.
they're equipping the exact same items.
Hey, I have
That you
a
have.
broken blade, but I cast spells. What's up?
Yeah, exactly. That's what was,
All right.
that's what
Yeah,
was pretty
there's
funny.
there's some credence to that.
Yeah. Speaking of looking into people's parties, what did you guys think about the party system for the game?
Ooh, yeah, this could be a fun thing, Cole.
Oh, yeah. I actively avoided using it at all times, and anytime the story made me take a party member, I was upset. I
wow.
probably missed out on a lot of the dialogue and interactions
Oh yeah.
because you chat with your party members and they go, "Oh my God, you're a serial killer, you're a murderer," as you go around killing all the little animals for like 10 minutes. But
Je suis.
I would always kick them out, but I thought the party thing was very cool and played well into the MMO structure of the game.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I liked having party members not only because they actually pulled their weight in combat, but yeah, a lot of the character interaction was pretty fun. It was like it spiced up some of backtracking or exploring new areas. They'd have different comments for each thing that they came across or enemy that you fought. It was pretty good. It was good.
Yeah, some pretty funny character interactions too, like Citron.
Yeah, they actually put Kyle in the game as Citron. Every time that Citron would say some stuff, I was like, dude, that's Kiowa, man. That's totally Kiowa.
Talking about worms with 5 hearts.
Yeah, and talking about unnatural geological formations.
There's no way this would exist in real life.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, Kiowa's talking about, yeah, this is the exact same thing that Kiowa would talk about. Bugs.
The biggest difference, I think, is Kiowa is much more reserved. He says it when it's cool and interesting, and
Yeah.
Tronny never stops ever for a second.
Yeah, that's true. Citron's a bit more of a dork than Kiowa is, I'd say. But I found him a lot more. He was lovable. He was a good boy.
Yeah, just a funny thing about Citron is I thought it was so funny how at the very end of the game he's just misses all the events of the game. This isn't really a spoiler or anything, right? Yeah, I just thought he had some stuff going on in real life and he just couldn't play for a month.
Which it's interesting to think about because some of that stuff, some of the characters missing and stuff. I don't, the passage of time in the game is really interesting because when you're logged out, you don't know how long you're logged out for. So it's some people are like, I gotta go. Did all of CrossCode take place in a week? I don't know. We could talk about that later too, but it's interesting for sure. But yeah,
they handled a lot of stuff like that very well. I've got a few notes here praising the game and how it thought about how people would actually play an MMO, and it really captures that essence very well in a lot of ways.
It does, yeah. I want to talk about that definitely more down the line.
I'd even go as far as to call it a postmodern MMORPG.
Postmodern MMORPG. That's hefty. That's nice. That's good.
Right? I mean, they've spent so much time just mapping out the intricate details of the game and all of it, just the commentary from the other characters. The only way that you can really, I think, go and make a game like this is by just playing MMOs your whole life and knowing exactly what to expect in an MMO, and then writing all of the characters off of that.
Yeah, and they did a really good job. I know it's just filler stuff, but particularly in the cities and in the areas, that does a really, really good job of filling out these cities and making them look populated with characters running around and AFK hanging out. There's people just chilling, which is awesome. And it was cool too. It seemed the further you got into the game, the less populated the actual areas would be. Whereas I remember in Autumn's Fall. No, Autumn's Rise. What was the first one? Autumn's Rise?
Yeah,
Rise.
yeah, Autumn's Rise.
There's characters like running around everywhere, and then in the desert there's characters running around in all the just the explorable areas, not even in the town. But then after that, it seems like there's just less and less characters running around, and I just appreciated those details a lot. I thought it was really cool.
And how you can even follow those characters, and like if you're stuck on a puzzle or a jump or something, you can literally just watch some randoms do the exact jump that you're trying to do, and then you're like, oh my god, okay, so I'll just hop up this little ledge over here that I didn't even see. So
yeah, and you know, I don't know, they did a really good job with the MMO like experience, and I have a lot of experience playing MMO like offline games, so this one is
a very specific subgenre.
this one's got the seal. It's got the certification.
And how does this compare to .hack then? You know, where in CrossCode you can bring out your little analyzer, your scanner, and you can highlight all these players and see their ridiculous MMO names. Is that something in other games usually? Because I really like that.
I liked that a lot too, but in .hack, no. In .hack felt like I remember in this is such a particular thing to be talking about here. This old shitty PS2 game .hack, but in .hack I remember there were like, I think it was like 10 million or 1 million or something like that. It was a big exorbitant number of people that they were like, yeah, holy shit, there's all these people who play The World, the online game The World. And then you log in and you look, you're running around the town and there's like maybe 10 people, probably less, just mindlessly running around. And then fields are instanced. So of course there's not going to be players running around there, but it's just a desolate, empty MMO. But yeah, I mean, this game feels so much more alive, and it's not even it's 2D. This game... Yeah. I can just tell, while playing it, I felt like it had so much heart. Like, this game it feels, I don't want to get all mushy. I don't want to get all mushy and like emotional shit, but this game, I don't know, it feels like it really has a lot of, like, the developers really loved the game and cared a lot about it.
I specifically wrote a note about that too, where I thought, was this a one-person project and I missed that or something?
I don't think so.
Because
no.
I don't think so either, but I for sure wrote, this is like a passion project. This feels full of character.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think any other game really compares to it, honestly. There's just, there's a lot of games that are like kind of about like an MMORPG within a game, but I don't think I've ever seen one to go into as great of detail as CrossCode, of just like story building and universe building, where you feel like this whole land was just like so painstakingly made, and every single thing in the game is just like again, back to that postmodern MMORPG. It's just like a comment on MMOs in general, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's interesting, like, even just looking at the last game we covered, Bloodstained. Like, that was supposed to be, you know, Igarashi coming back to make his signature series. And between love and character-wise, you know, this game, I feel, has just so much more, you know, heart.
Like 100 times more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that nothing against Bloodstained, but for
nothing
sure. But
at all against
CrossCode
Bloodstained.
is just totally in its own league.
It's definitely, yeah, totally, for sure.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Character interactions make a whole lot of sense. I feel like everyone is just like so well thought out, each of the characters. And then compared to, you know, something like Orlok Jakul fighting you for no reason, for loaning you a book in the first place.
Just referential material only for hardcore gamers.
Yeah. What was I? Oh, speaking, I remember we were talking just a bit about, I wanted to talk about the exploration. We talked a bit about the combat, and I'm sure we can dive into that a little more. Mm-hmm. But the exploration was really good, I thought. Sometimes it felt a little counterintuitive, because the way the game works, you get to a new area And then you have all these different zones to explore to get to the city, which is usually the path to get to the dungeon, to unlock the element that helps you explore the area more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah.
The exploration, it kind of felt like a waste of time to do it sometimes. This is just a side note. This is one of my nitpicks actually about the game. This is one of my few nitpicks. Actually, I have a couple. I have a handful of nitpicks.
Actually, I have a few hundred.
Yeah, I got a handful. I got a couple hundred nitpicks, and this is one of them. This is just one of them.
Let's hear it.
Exploration. It felt super counterintuitive to explore an area before like the end of the game, basically, because the first time you get to an area, you don't have the element that helps you get past certain obstacles. And then you also don't have all these keys. You get different keys to unlock chests, so you can't even get everything that you like work, a puzzle to unlock. So it just felt like kind of a waste of time. I remember, I think it was in the desert where I did this big long jumping puzzle thing, which those are okay. I'll get into that.
I want to talk about this for now. I have stuff to say too.
So you spend all this time jumping, navigating around through multiple panels, multiple zones, and then you just get to a chest and you don't even have the fucking key to unlock it. And you get those keys through the progression of the story. It's not like an optional thing. So it's like later in the next dungeon or the next dungeon, you'll get the key to unlock this chest in this early area. And sure, in like a Metroidvania, sure, that's cool. But in this game where a lot of these jumping things are really, really super intricate, and I can't be asked to remember. Asked, not asked. I can't be asked to remember. I can't be asked to remember how to fucking jump across all these zones to get to this one chest. It just kind of bummed me out. And then there were like all these different things with wave, like teleporting. I remember the jungle is such a huge zone that it was like, I don't even want to explore this until I get these abilities at all. And and at that point, I'm pretty sure you have all the keys and everything too. So, but that was just one of my minor nitpicks. Was like I spent so much time exploring Autumn's Rise and the desert, and then I learned quickly that it was like, oh, I can't even get everything here. I'm just gonna progress the story and then come back, and it just felt like a lot of the wonder wasn't there after that.
That's fair. I think I agree to a strong degree.
Yeah, it was definitely frustrating to stumble upon chests that were just totally inaccessible to you. And when you spent so much time trying to figure out a puzzle on how to get up to that particular chest, and then only to find that it needs the ice element to be unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stuff like that can definitely make you less inclined to explore. If there was that reward there, then that would be probably a whole different story.
I think the exploration's probably has most of my concerns in the game as well. And the strongest thing I'd agree with is the chests. It doesn't make much sense to lock things behind chests and keys that you get in the story progression, and then they give you the element pretty much at the exact same time, unless you decide to leave the dungeon prematurely. So I don't understand why they did both. I still had fun exploring twice over, but for sure it loses a little bit of the charm when you scour back through. You've got map pins to help you remember where stuff is, but
my god,
that's not
the
a
map
perfect
fucking
solution.
Sucked. The
You
map
think
was
the map
bad.
was bad?
The map was bad. Yeah, the map sucked.
Anytime in a game when there's like a map with multiple levels, it's just too much for my little brain to handle. My smooth brain.
You couldn't tell where you were. Like the dungeon maps were fine. I didn't have a problem with the dungeon maps, but the world map, like of an over an area, like it's just a big ass square with like it's featureless. And when you're trying to pin like, oh, there's a chest, like Genshin Impact or Zelda or something, you have to be like, am I in the bottom left of this fucking massive square? I guess I'll just put a chest here. And there's like no, because there's no indication for you on the map, and there's no features on this big featureless
they should have had
square,
a map marker for you at the very, very least. I was fine with the map, but that that's a little strange that you just had to ask yourself, okay, which part of this map am I in? I have to approximate where I am to mark this.
You have to approximate everything. Like, and for something where it's like those chests we were talking about, marking those specifically was just a chore. And I wish I could have marked like, oh, the puzzle starts here, or something like that. But it was just so, yeah, featureless map. I don't know. They should have just had, a little bit more detail on those, I think, and I would have been fine. But yeah,
I'm okay if they would have just had a map marker for Leah. That's all I could ask for.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Or even if they wanted to keep like the square edges, the 90-degree angles, at least just add a few like little corners or curbs to the map, so you get like a slight shape to the like at least that let the shape of the room that you're in somewhat match.
That's true too. Yeah.
The dimensions of what level you're actually on.
But yeah, like as far as exploration goes, like exploring felt like a bit of a puzzle too,
Oh yeah.
And in this respect, I really, really liked it because it felt really rewarding to be above, like when you finally figure out how to get to the area above, like that you've been seeing this whole time.
Oh.
And then you're like, yes. And then you jump and you're like, fuck yeah. It felt really, really rewarding and interesting to be hunting those down, except when you miss a jump because the isometric camera and it's like kind of hard to tell depth with the graphics specifically. And then all of a sudden you fall down and you're like, and you have to go all the way back around. Yeah, it was the camera and the graphics. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with the platforming and stuff where you're jumping. And I mean, the graphics are fucking gorgeous. Like the sprite work is excellent, and the backgrounds are so cool. But it's definitely a bit hard to tell like layers and depth and height.
That's my absolute number one biggest thing against CrossCode for me is perspective is its greatest enemy, especially for platforming, to a degree puzzles and combat. Nothing is worse in CrossCode than the fact, and they can't do anything about it, is just perspective. You have no depth. I share your pain in all those instances you mentioned.
Yeah, just there are times when I would just leap against this like a jump that you thought that you're on the same level, and then it's just one level higher, and you spent so much time getting up to that point. You jump and it looks like it's on your same level, like visually identical, indistinguishable, but then it turns out you were just not on that level and you go falling all the way down.
It goes the other way too. When you jump from a higher platform and they intend for you to go to a lower one, and it's not to the side, or even if it is to the side sometimes, and you just have to make a leap of faith because it doesn't look like you'd make it, and sometimes you just do.
Yeah, I suppose that's the hardest thing too, because they do everything in their power to, for the most part, to show the differences in height and perspective. Like they do a pretty good job of dithering, I think it's called. When things are higher, so you could see through it. Yeah, they do the best they can, but it's still just such a big, like where platforming and whatnot is such a big part of the game, and puzzle solving. It's just hard.
In my opinion, earlier in the game, they made more of an effort, and it may be intentional, to sort of mark the terrain in different ways with visual tells, so that you would, at a glance, you'd say, oh, that is on a different level than where I'm at. Like they'd put different stuff on it. And then later in the game, it seems like stuff blends together more, and it becomes harder and harder to differentiate. And you more often have to stop yourself and use your cursor and like aim to see if you're going to make it beforehand or not.
Yeah, or especially in like monocolor environments like Vermilion Wasteland, when everything for me was like that major hue of red in certain areas. It was really hard to tell, the different levels apart.
Yeah, definitely some blending issues. I don't know how they could ever fix it. but
I don't think that they really could too much.
yeah.
With the art, the pixel graphics, I think just that top-down perspective of, like you said, a 2D game will make it so it's just not exactly the best combination for a platforming game. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I guess I only had that problem probably like 1 out of 20 jumps that I made were just hard because of a visual issue. The other 19 times were because the jump was just plain hard to make.
Yeah.
But speaking of jumping mechanics,
Yeah.
did you guys ever... Okay, I don't know
I
if...
remember this.
I mentioned earlier how I found this like long jump.
Yeah, you were
found out
like,
how
have
to
you
do
guys
a
been
long
long jumping? And then we're like, no, what the fuck is that?
Long jumping.
Yeah.
So there were it's definitely longer than a normal jump by a long shot. You basically just, it's when you're on the second level of something, you have to dash off the edge of it until you block, basically. And then right as you block, you dash again for an even longer jump.
Oh,
and it
yeah.
just lets you basically jump and dash across the surface. So you get just a little, like, an extra, I want to say on the screen, maybe like an extra centimeter of a jump.
I did learn about that, actually, but after I beat the game, when I was looking up what I had left remaining to go do in the post-game, I learned about that, and you can for sure reach places you're not supposed to, and maybe you can sequence break. I don't know. When did you find out about that?
I
How
found
early
about
did you start
this
breaking games?
Very early in the game. I want to say by Autumn's Rise, I think. I found out about it.
I mean, I'm almost interested in playing the game again just to break it with that.
Yeah, I was trying the same jump. What I found is that if you snaked your way like around certain ledges, you can get like to areas where there were plants that were definitely intended to be shot, not to be meleeed. As far as sequence breaking, I haven't really... They have these hard barriers. So they, like, like the border between levels sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
There were these, like, sort of gates or like, solid fixtures that were impermeable, could not be crossed no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think that's their way of keeping you from, like, accessing an area that you should never be able to access.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, hard sequence breaks might be few and far between, if any, but I imagine there's ones where you need, like the wave teleport puzzles in the overworld. There might be jumps where you can utilize that little trick and get to them early, and I'd be really curious to know, but I didn't play with it.
Yeah, with the waves, I sometimes found myself hitting those little green balls that you shoot your wave out, and then it goes through a wall, and wherever it lands, it can teleport you to that location if it hits one of these little nodes. And I was hitting the wrong node frequently, and it would teleport me to like the middle of the puzzle at one point. And I had to just quit my game. I had to just quit it because there was no way for me to get back.
Really?
Yeah, I was just trapped in the middle of this land gate area, and there was some timed gate that would let you into this area too. But I wasn't even supposed to be there because I hadn't like knocked down another gate that was close by. So basically, I was just trapped in between these gates now, and I had to reboot the game.
That's very interesting. Where was that?
That was in the wave dungeon. When you unlock the wave element.
That sucks.
And I also didn't have the wave element
too.
yet either to jump back to another thing. So you had to like activate, those wave dispensers or those when it turns your projectile into a wave, and then it just kind of trapped me in this zone that I wasn't supposed to be in.
That's very interesting. I didn't know about that. So you soft locked yourself. Can't you just teleport out of the dungeon?
I don't know.
Yeah,
how do you? Oh yeah, that's right. I could have just teleported out of the dungeon, but all the same, I guess I just didn't want to lose my spot in the dungeon and go all the way back out. So
If you were, I think you were, then yeah, I guess so. That sucks though, because those dungeons at that point of the game that's where everything was starting to get really hard, and I think that was a big. Those two were big struggles for us in different ways.
I think this is one of my other big gripes about the game.
I can't wait. I'm sitting pretty ready to listen to this, eager.
My biggest gripe with CrossCode is just Chapter 8 in general.
Oh my god.
Not getting into too many story things too, because we'll talk about that later.
Are there story issues for you in it? Just yes or no? Okay.
Also in Chapter 8, there's story issues for me personally, yeah. But the game is 10 chapters long. Usually, it seems like, the introductory chapters were pretty quick and clean. Mm-hmm. But then subsequently, like, you go, I think it's Chapter 3, or is it Chapter 2? Either way, it seemed like you're completing a dungeon every chapter for a while, and the pacing of the story is good. And, you're learning your abilities at this nice rate where you have enough time to really get comfy with them. And then Chapter 8 comes along, and it's like, guess what? Guess how many dungeons is in this chapter?
One, like the rest, right?
One, like the rest. No, that's wrong. Actually, if you were going to guess 2 next, you're wrong. It's 3. There's 3 dungeons in one single chapter. They're all fucking long, and you don't even really have a lot of time to learn these abilities before you have to put them to the fucking ultimate test. You have to put them to the ultimate test in all these puzzle gauntlets. And it
An enemy in that Grand Temple, literally says you must demonstrate mastery of both of these elements.
The ones that you just got. You
got these elements 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. The pacing of both the story and the dungeons is it's bad. I don't like Chapter 8 at all, because I almost maybe want to go into this more when we get into the story for sure, but mechanically that's my biggest gripe, is that you have a lot of time with your other abilities leading up to this point, and then it feels really super rushed, and subsequently somehow it's rushed as hell and also snail's pace. I don't know how they managed to make it feel rushed and just slow as fuck, but like,
yeah, I totally agree. Just the fact that that Chapter 8 was so long compared to the other chapters, like disproportionately so much more content in Chapter 8. Just from anything from them throwing in little side quests that had really nothing to do with the main plot, like, oh, the Argonians are angry and they want their temple to be purged first before you go into the main dungeon. They're on strike. Uh-oh, gamers on strike.
Uh-oh, there's these snakes, these big towers coming out of the glitchy system thing. Like, I don't even, what the fuck was all that stuff?
Okay, that was, honestly, what was that?
That was super drawn out. That lasted so long.
It lasted a long time. Yeah.
Lasted a long ass time.
Were those actual glitches in the game, or were those scripted?
Should we get into that? I understand what it was, but should we talk about it?
You do know? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spill it right now.
I guess, that's not a big story thing, so I do want to talk about a little bit about that, for sure.
What were those polls?
There is, to a degree in this story, it's a little confusing to the degree that I don't understand all of it, but this is like a real place, right? This whole game takes place in a real planet, a real continent, and there's this area called the Track of the Ancients. Like, all of this takes place on there's all this lore about it, and they designed this game using like augmented reality, virtual reality particles or whatever. That's what your characters in the
VRPs.
The game is made of, is these particles, and
Evotars.
Yeah, so no. When we
Avatars.
when they started trying to access this track, right? When they started delving into it. The track is real, and it started, fighting back against them, so they had to like enclose them, and that's what all this stuff is the game interfering with the track and whatever. And that was the track fighting back, fixing, trying to reclaim stuff.
Okay, interesting, because I thought the track was in the game. I thought that was all
It could
in-game
be
lore.
it could be in the game, but either way, because that's like a side quest, right, from an NPC to get access to the dungeons. So it would make sense that this is just an element of the game that they're making you do, and the glitches weren't real. That's also very possible. That's something I'm confused about. Is the track real and whatnot? But
So that was not technically then part of the main campaign. That was part of your campaign as Leah.
Yeah, that's what's interesting, because does every player have to do that theoretically within the game to
I think
unlock,
yes.
to progress?
I think
That's an
yes. The
MSQ.
answer. I think that's a main story quest. I don't think that's a Leah thing. I think that's a game
Okay.
quest.
So that's just them using the evotar or the avatars for just cheap labor to
No.
keep fixing the track.
Oh. Yeah, if the track is real,
If
then
the track
yes.
is real, then yes. If it's not, which I think actually is more likely it's not real, it's just a quest, and they just presented it that way. Is they interfered with this spot, or that monster you fight interfered with the spot, and it's just this track fighting back against you at their power plant. Because those things you fight and you chase all the way out, the long drawn out part,
Yeah,
they were like nodes,
to
or
repair.
like virus scanners looking for where the problem was.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't know if it was supposed to be the game's virus scanners or the track's virus scanners.
Yeah,
But-
when you put it to the torch like that, I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
They did summon those cats.
Yeah. Those
So
cute little cats.
So maybe it was a scripted actual event.
Yeah, as we talk about it more, I'm leaning into that was just a game event, but they build up enough lore of the track fighting back against them exploiting the area that it made sense to me.
That's something that I had some trouble with too. was realizing who is like basically everyone you interact with is an NPC. And
Yes.
they're scripted to say whatever within this game.
Either an NPC or a real player.
Or a
Right.
player,
But
yeah.
but most of the people you had actual conversations with,
Yeah.
like real ones,
Yeah.
not ones you were listening in or just caught wind of, but when you entered a dialogue.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
I think that's what you mean.
And sometimes that's used, to a funny respect because, Leah, her speech module's broken. She can't talk. So, like, the NPCs will just be giving their, like, dialogue, even if she can't say anything. But sometimes it felt like specifically with that researcher, I guess, it was like, it felt like maybe no, because there isn't any humans in the playground, the quote-unquote playground in the world, right? That's supposed to be a weird thing. So there's that has to be an NPC. The researcher. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are NPCs who don't act on scripts doing the same thing over and over. Some of them are actually in there actively administrating and doing and fixing things.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not that was a scripted quest, I guess we weren't paying enough attention to know.
The jury's out. The jury's out on that one. Right, Cole?
Yeah. I never questioned it before, but apparently so.
Well, yeah, it almost sounds like we're getting at the point where we're just ready to talk about some story elements.
Well, I don't
Maybe
know.
maybe you are, but I have so
Okay.
much to talk about.
I am itching.
Oh, sure.
I'm itching to. I'll be honest. I'm itching to. But
I just thought since we
there's
were
more.
talking about the bridge between reality and the game. And
It's
what
just a
was
whole
part of
mess,
the game.
all of these different elements intertwine, and that's what I think makes this game especially interesting, is because each
Yeah.
one is executed very well on its own, and then they mingle together very well too.
Yeah. Definitely.
Totally.
You see those when you walk up to all those trader shops in a town. I thought, oh, this is really interesting because they've got these NPCs set up to trade items with you. And in a normal MMO, I guess, it's usually reserved for like an end game. You would collect currencies a lot in
Yeah.
these games, and you'd exchange them. And in this game, that was like how you did all trades. And I thought it was
Yeah.
a very interesting way of mingling that bit of real MMO sort of progression into this game at all points.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's really funny to analyze the game as if it were a real MMO.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I
was
kind
doing
of
that a
wish
lot.
it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be cool. It would be very, very interesting. I wish I could have seen more of the other classes because they did have unique animations and attacks and stuff. So I wonder,
Maybe someday they can actually release a CrossCode online. Where
talking dot hack, one of my favorite all-time favorite games. They released a online version dot hack fragment.
Whoa.
So it's not,
And was it
It's
any
not
good?
impossible.
Did people like it?
Yeah, it's got a fan base.
MMOs are so hard to actually do, though, is the problem, and that's why I think this very niche subgenre is usually received so positively, or people look on them fondly, like dot hack. I mean, here you are talking about it. I know you hate its guts so much, but you're saying you love it. I don't know what that's about, but
That's true.
clearly it captured you in some way, and they've all got these weird isekai feels. Is that appropriate or no?
No, that's not appropriate.
You don't think so?
No.
I mean, it might be a blemish depending on what you think of an isekai, but for sure, when you are given a bit of detail about Leah earlier on, it feels maybe like this is an isekai.
CrossCode could be an isekai, but the other ones, not like dot hack, is not an isekai. I'd say.
It's not? Oh, yeah, I guess you can like log out and stuff from that one.
Yeah,
Huh?
you can look at like the real world stuff going on. You're not transported to another. The whole thing about isekai is you just wake up in a foreign world, which makes sense.
Where am I?
Yeah, it makes sense for CrossCode because they have the ye old story element of amnesia, except it's actually used pretty well in the game, unlike most other amnesias.
Yeah, okay.
That's true.
That clears up some things for me, I guess.
Yeah, so right when they talk about it being amnesia, and then I was kind of like frustrated with that whole turn at first.
Yeah.
But my frustration quickly faded.
It's kind of like there's a couple story things that instantly put me off, and one of them is a character has amnesia, or the in media ray thing where it starts halfway into the story. Just to keep, it starts halfway into the story, and then you go record scratch. Yep, that's me. You might be wondering how I got here. Let's start at the beginning.
I hate both of those
huge
too.
giant turns in the plot out of nowhere.
Yeah, like they open
that.
with the thing happening at the end, and it's supposed to keep your attention, and then they go to the very beginning of the story. It's like, why not start where the story starts?
And that's why you hate FF15.
FF15?
Yeah. That's
What
why you hate
happens
that
in
one
that?
so much, right?
Oh yeah, I hated that. That pissed me off too in the beginning of that game, because it could have just started with the road trip thing, them pushing the car. It
Yeah.
should have just started with that.
So even a good game can get off to a bad start
Persona
by pulling one of
5?
those. Persona
Yeah.
5, yep, I didn't like
Persona
it in that
5
one
has
either.
it. Yeah, it's just dumb. It's dumb. It's a stupid. It's such a weak, like uncreative way to start a story.
I agree.
Unless it like works in the story's favor somehow, but it never ever does.
But in CrossCode, of course, that doesn't actually happen, right?
Yeah, there's no
So-
in media ray thing.
So
Or is it in
we're just
media
talking
res?
about stuff we don't like.
Yeah, but that it was just multiple things. Yeah, it doesn't start. It starts with the amnesia, and that's usually a big red flag for a story. So if you're starting this game and the main character has amnesia, and you go, ugh, fucking turn it off. Please give it a chance, because it's actually good. It's actually good in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amnesia is definitely an overused trope, but yeah, I bet there's certain people who played the game up to when they were like, oh, you have amnesia, and then they just stop playing,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
then they'll never know.
And
I'll
you're
never
inside a video game in a video game. So that's like
yeah.
that's kind of a turnoff, I'd say, if you weren't really willing to risk any more playtime.
Yeah, because you think when you hear the concept of you playing a video game where you're playing a video game, and you instantly think, what story could be good told like this?
Yeah, I had that impression too.
Yeah, like you can't think a video game story in a video game. Like, how is that going to captivate you? But the lore and stuff, like, it's pretty crazy. Going back to the postmodern MMO thing, man, they like really thought out the lore And it's all such background information, but the lore of the story of the MMO, there's a lot of information out there for you to read to like learn everything. And that is insane to me because I didn't spend a lot of time reading all the notes and stuff. It seemed like everything was always explained like in the log book that you got. And like
The log
compendiums like that I love in games, and this game had so much information. It was very useful. Checked up on it a lot.
Yeah, and this game is like a completionist's wet dream. Because everything is so meticulously organized and kept, and there's numbers. There's all these different numbers.
There's
like,
lots of numbers in this game.
You've collected. Oh, but just in your logbook, there's a lot of numbers, and they keep really good track of how many numbers you have. They they go, you have 10 out of 18. Don't you want to just get the 18 to see 18 out of 18? And it's like on every single page of your little compendium, they keep percentages. There's like they keep such good track of all the stats.
There's a stats screen, yeah. And they
even
track
the map
in the
shows
game.
you how many chests you've unlocked in an area.
It's a completionist wet dream, dude. There's things just showing you how much you've done in everywhere you look. Everywhere you look.
I don't know if I'd call it a completionist wet dream.
Why?
Exactly. There's not that much to actually go out of your way and complete, but the tracking is very, very good. Specifically, the tracking is if you just isolate that, that bit is a completionist wet dream because lots of games don't have that kind of stuff. You just have to approximate, and that sucks.
That's true. One thing I noticed it doesn't have that typical MMOs would have. It CrossCode lacks like any cosmetic items.
Wrong.
Ooh, well, that's
Right? What?
Well,
I'm wrong.
Wrong.
well. There are things you can do in the arena. There's some end game, post game stuff that you can like farm to get some like auras, some stuff around your character. There's like a cosmetic DLC that you have to buy for $1. You could be a ninja.
There's pets. There are some codes you can put in at the start of the game that give you some extra content, like a little Santa hat.
It's nothing substantial. It's like no gear swapping or armor switching or hair color changing or anything like that.
But not really, because you are a preset character for this story.
But nothing in vanilla gameplay.
And they talk about it too in the story. As some characters talk about how they did, their character customization to a degree, but for the service of the story, you don't do that. And it's mostly, I believe that arena stuff also is like a post game update. So base game, it feels like that to me. I'm pretty sure it is.
I think
most of the base game and what you're gonna expect to see if you just do main story. Yeah, there's no customization, really, no cosmetics.
Is the game technically complete now?
No.
Yeah. No.
Huh?
Just the base game, the story and everything, that's all there, but there's more updates planned, There's new areas coming.
Yep, that's in DLC. That's
That's paid content? I thought that's a free update coming.
I thought that it was going to be paid DLC. Just the word DLC makes me think that it's extended extra content.
Yeah, I think that's a conception that's a preconception that's fair to have, but I believe that there are a lot of things in the game right now that lend to the idea that it will be free, because I don't even think you could the New Game Plus wasn't originally in the game, and that was added for free. The arena, I believe, was added for free, and all those other quests. I really do think it would be free, and I guess that's just speculation, but
that's how they've been doing it so far. I mean, they've been it's a labor of love.
I think it would
sure.
be strange for them to change that now. Yeah. But I guess we'll just have to see in the future.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, because it'd be very nice to have it for free, and we almost deserve it.
Yeah, you definitely deserve it if you got to the end of CrossCode, which is an achievement. I think I saw a pretty low amount of people on Steam had that achievement.
Yeah.
And I didn't check that. Those are always interesting statistics, because some games...
I don't have that number on me, though.
20 to 30% is, what I expect to see on average.
Watch this.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 10, 12%, 12.9% of people have completed Chapter 10. Yeah. Got the achievement for it.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely lower than what I would consider the average of any game completion.
So thus, we definitely deserve that free post-game episode.
The way it's positioned in the game as well, again, trying to avoid any spoilers, it does make it seem like it's intended to be seen as a part of the main experience. And it's just, it's just not there yet. They haven't gotten around to finishing it.
Look, man, I think now let's just start talking. Look, we'll do spoilers, all right? From here on out is spoiler territory. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. It's time to take those shackles off. Let's just go.
There's more to talk about with the mechanics and stuff, but I think that'll just come naturally as we talk about some of the later like puzzles and character interactions and stuff.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, it's too taxing to talk. It's too taxing to talk while tiptoeing around all these spoilers.
Yeah, I think Kiowa he's been chomping at the bit to talk about some of this stuff.
All right, Kiowa.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the post game stuff.
Yes.
Let's let you have the floor. What are you thinking here? Well, okay. First, maybe we should give a synopsis, right?
Yeah,
sure,
an early lay of the land and where it ends up.
All right. Yeah, I'll start that off. So basically, you're going through the game, everything's fine, and ironically, the very first time I stopped playing CrossCode, because I started the game.
Wait, whoa.
Oh.
Don't reveal the big spot yet.
Oh, okay. I thought that's exactly what we were about to do. Oh,
okay. Fucking let me take the reins.
Yeah, you take the reins here. All you.
Damn, dude. What the fuck?
Oh shit.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I had to. Okay, listen.
No, your place.
CrossCode is about a character who logs into the game with amnesia, who has amnesia and is being instructed what to do from sort of a disembodied head, essentially on a screen telling you sort of what you're doing. Essentially, you're logging into this character to reveal her memories because she's some integral part of this game's lore or what this guy, Sergey, needs from her.
The IT specialist on your ticket number.
Yeah. He's the IT specialist, and he sort of he directs, Leah around and is essentially sort of, responsible for setting her on her quest. But, Leah wakes up with amnesia, doesn't know what the fuck is going on, is playing in this virtual world. And initially, you're told that it's a coma. She's in a coma, and, in playing the game, she's supposed to reveal sort of her memories, her dormant memories, which, unlock some mysteries. And, that seems to be the case for a while, because each time you log out, and it's Sergey logging you in and out of the game. But each time you log out, you sort of see these little flashbacks and mixing memories of present things and past things that seem to reveal a little bit about what's going on. But then
Kiowa.
Okay. So then at this point it's revealed to Leah that she is not actually an amnesiac. She is in fact an artificially intelligent organism produced as a copy, a crosscode of another player, another real, actual life player, and the memories that you've been recalling in your dream the whole time actually were that player's in-game experiences.
Yeah, I can't understate how well that was done in the game. Like, I think it can be easy to figure out maybe that wasn't the case, but it was just interesting because there's a character who you play as. Oh, this game does kind of start in media res, doesn't it? No, it starts before. Either way, you play as a different character named Shizuka, who looks almost like inverted Leah. She's got inverted colors. She has a scar on her face.
Yeah, it's been so long. I almost forgot about that intro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She looks very similar to Leah, which made me think like, obviously that's to throw you off of the truth. But obviously you're supposed to be thinking, oh, I'm this girl in a coma.
Yeah.
You know, or because they're so similar. They're the same class. They look remarkably similar. And, but then they throw this, they hit you with a wet bag and they hit you with a, I gotta say they hit you with a wet bag every time. They hit you with a wet bag when it's revealed like you're built off of Shizuka and you're not a real person. And it like, that scene was probably the pinnacle of the game for me personally.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the things that pissed me off about the game initially is that I bought the Amnesia stuff hook, line, and sinker. And I was just like, oh, come on. We've got another Amnesia game here. Like, it just didn't make sense to me that your character had amnesia, like they somehow couldn't log out of their headset like this is some sort of Black Mirror episode. And they're just trapped in this virtual reality headset, but they're also suffering from amnesia. And somehow in like the game was like plugged into people's brains and it could like, you know, sense REM sleep and all this complicated stuff. And I thought it was such a stretch. And it turned out that it was just a bold-faced lie, just to tide you over long enough to reach a certain like point of no return where he could finally tell you the truth after you were like so invested in the game, basically.
In some ways, you did have amnesia, though. So that wasn't technically a lie, but the other bit was a lie.
Yeah, Leah did have amnesia.
Or yeah, being in a coma and all that, I suppose. Yeah. But technically, did she? She didn't have amnesia, did she? She just had no memories because she's a fresh organism.
But it's so close that it's hard to really conflate the two and call it a total lie. But it's inarguable that the coma story was a lie and a cover-up.
It's almost as if the codes of each player's game had somehow crossed together.
Oh my god.
Well, it's like Leah had, she had both Shizuka's memories and then memories of like her development too.
Yeah.
Like she remembered things like when her body was even being put together. It felt like she was...
Yeah, she was experiencing those somehow in her moments when she was isolated with the big bad. Right?
Yeah.
She remembered that developers. Stuff. So clearly it's old memories that she was just recalling. So I guess in a way she did have actual amnesia.
AI amnesia.
Artificial amnesia.
This episode's full of them today. This episode's full of them.
Full of zingers.
But yeah, the scene, specifically everything, I think for me, this is kind of going back to the slog of Chapter 8 for me, and my biggest gripe was that the game climaxed almost for me in Chapter 7 when all these mysteries, you join a guild in the story, and guilds are a big MMO thing, and raids are a big MMO thing, and you're about to embark on a raid with your best guild buddies in the game, and you're like halfway through this crazy raid, and then you get stopped and teleported against your will to this other, like, off-limits, off-the-grid sort of playground with all these weird guys running around. And it's like everything is building up, mystery upon mystery. And then it all gets revealed with that Shizuka thing when she barges into your room and is like, yeah, you're nothing but a copy of me or whatever, and, like, throws Leah around, and Leah is, like, it's so sad. Like she's just crumpled in this Zen garden crying. And I just remember that scene like, oh man, it was heartrending.
That was a big, big moment in the story for me too, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And you get through all this stuff. And like Lucas, your party member is there. He got taken from the other side of the raid. And you're like, he's your one sort of solid bro while you're there. You're one thing holding you to all your other friends, the thing keeping Leah going, basically. And then it's revealed that everybody there is an AI too. And so he was just an AI copy of the real Lucas, one of your friends. And that's another punch in the face, that part was so well done and just like built up, everything through the game built up to this. And it was like executed very well. But then chapter 8 comes and there's no story shit. There's hardly anything in the story after that. Like, there's a little bit where Leah's sad and she hangs out with Apollo and Jorn, who are just like total bros. They're cool as hell. And she just hangs out with them. And then they cheer her up. And then Emily is mad, or Emile. How do you pronounce her name?
Probably Emile.
I said Emily. I don't know. It's difficult for me.
She's mad.
Mm-hmm.
She's like,
it is a French. It's a French girl, I should say. So that's why I thought it was Emile.
It's probably more
that's what
correct.
I was thinking as well. Yeah, but she's all pissed off and like, there's a little bit of story. She's being all spiteful and shitty and hot, like she's a bad friend. She's just being a bad friend and a bad person in general. I don't like Emile at all.
Emile's an NPC, in my opinion. That's the only reason she would not have known that Leah wasn't like responding to her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's smooth brain, dude.
Capable of speech. Yeah, absolute smooth brain. On the blurring the line between player and NPC.
Yeah, so then chapter 8 comes and there's hardly any development in the story and you're just like have to do all these dungeons. It's just after what happened in 7, this pinnacle of the story, this big reveal, and then it just punches you in the face with this triple dungeon, hardly any story exposition section of the game. That was like the slowest shit, and it just was such a slog, and I hate chapter 8 so much.
Yeah, you have to slog through it right after finding out so much crazy stuff that's going on, where it doesn't reveal anything to you actually about like what's going on. The whole time you're going through that chapter and you're just anxious, waiting for the next information to be like discovered about what's going on. But they make you jump through so much, literally 3 dungeons before they even like mention the plot again. Mm-hmm. The true plot, plot.
So that's a big pacing issue to me, and that was when my playtime really started to slow down. The first time I played it, that's where I stopped too.
Oh.
And I remember why. I remember why now.
Yeah, the first time I played part of it and stopped, it was actually before they even mentioned that she was an AI. So I like genuinely thought that it was basically like her being an amnesiac the whole game and just like trying to discover more, and that's kind of what like put me off about the game initially as well.
Yeah.
But
I bought into the coma thing as well, because that seems to be a common trope in these, and in the subgenre even, is they almost always do that in my experience. Yeah. So I totally bought it. I didn't think anything else of it, and I was almost disappointed because I thought that they could go in a unique way, the way that they had been developing the lore and the plot of this game with the coma story that we hadn't seen, stuff about the human condition, and they went a different way that is also very, very good and probably better in most ways. But initially I was like upset that they would go with the AI route, because I almost feel that is just as cliche.
Yeah.
True.
I don't know. I just think the way it was handled and executed was excellent. And Chapter 7, while Chapter 7 gameplay-wise was kind of a slog too, it wasn't very fun, but it was just really tense and mysterious, and you were like, what? I gotta see what happens.
I didn't want to put the game down during Chapter 7, even though it for sure wasn't very fun, because you were extremely restricted and just following the main story to do anything. Yeah, total emotional gut punch left and right.
Yeah. And I'd say, honestly, my biggest probably gripe of the game, the single biggest thing I have to complain about is that a lot of the time the game really did feel like restrictive, like you're just on this track and you have to go through like the story as like these events sort of unfold around you. When you like typically in MMOs you have like a lot more freedom, but they hardline you into this specific storyline where a lot of the times I wanted to just go like explore or just do combat or just like experience more of the MMO aspects of the game. But that's all essentially, I suppose, supposed to be late game stuff. Because
the MMO stuff is just dressing.
Yeah, true. And
but they paint it as like as if it weren't, for sure.
It depends on the MMO too, because those for sure restrict you just as much, especially with their main stories. You can't access things in those games until you do main story quest either. I don't think there's too much of a difference, and I never felt restricted outside of a couple specific story segments, personally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose that's one way to think of it. I guess the point for me, where the game kind of got to be a little bit stressful, almost like, you know, you're just playing this super fun like MMO cool universe RPG game and just exploring and finding out all this cool stuff. And basically then when you're about to complete that raid, like it just felt like such a good, cool moment, like with you and your party and like your friends and everything. And that's like the moment where they stripped you from like the actual game. So you never get to ever see what the end of that raid is like. And they just take you to literally prison. And throw you in baby jail.
Yeah, I wish they would have given you an opportunity to go back and do that raid or do a different raid. Because they said there's more, right? I don't remember actually doing a different one.
You know what's really cool and also kind of weird about Chapter 7? Sergey, he doesn't recognize that the Lucas you're with is not a player. And it's interesting, especially because I knew ahead of time and I checked my player list, and like Lucas is online. Real Lucas is on. There are two Lucases in your contact list. Whoa. If you look, and they're different levels too.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, and the other one is online, or he'll be offline, I think, while the one you're with is online. So if if you're a savvy player, or if you know ahead of time, or if you just happen to cross it, you could be like, wait, why is this, but it's just weird that Sergey didn't notice. I don't know if it must have been
there's some weird stuff in the whole game, I think, where they just kind of hand wave some certain thing. Because if they wanted to realistically track someone like Leah in the video game, I think it would have been significantly easier than they were making it out to be. Yeah. So, there's a couple instances of that, I think, that you kind of have to look past. Right. But I think that's interesting. As the player, you can discern the difference.
But also, wasn't Sergey like actively the whole game just taking measures to prevent them from tracking Leah and trying to always underwrite stuff? And the fact that her speech was disabled, or rather, there was just no coding for her speech as like her specific Evotar didn't have speech, so he had to hard write all of that into the game just for her.
Sergey's a bro, man.
Sergey really is probably the coolest character in my opinion. He's just like the unsung hero, always there trying to just like patch things up, make sure
a good boy.
Certain bosses actively like hacking the game, exploiting the game around you to beat like a high level enemy to scale. And that was just so cool in my opinion, when he would just scale your attack to the level or past the level of the HP of the enemy, even to help you defeat an enemy that was way out of your level zone.
Yeah, like that was another cool thing with Chapter 7. It was such a Chapter 7's the best.
It got a really climactic end,
Yeah, you're breaking through the walls of this dungeon. You're breaking the game, essentially, to cheat and get out of this prison, essentially. And then you fight this boss who's like buffed to hell, like level 99, and has millions and billions and trillions of health. And then Sergey gives you all these health buffs or these health and damage buffs to like fight it. And you see these astronomically large numbers, and you're like, this is so fucking cool. And you're like, it's so good. And then chapter 8.
And that was such a good that's like such a good comment on number inflation in MMOs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where
It
the
feels good to see
damage
those
and
big numbers.
yeah, damage HP is in the millions, trillions, and whatever. And yeah, they just kind of,
If he was so good, he could have just let you set its HP to 1, but he used some other complicated thing and made you rack up the exponents. Stupid Sergey. He's not that smart.
Can we I want to talk about Leah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really love Leah so much, and there's a lot to say about the silent protagonist archetype and how it's used in this game. And because Leah's speech module doesn't work, so she can't talk, so she's mute. But the dude, Sergey hardcodes words into her thing, so she says like a few select words. But the way that the sprite work and those words work with Leah's expression and character and stuff is just so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like I there were so many moments where her limited vocabulary was used in a comedic effect, and it was also used in like such a heartrending, sad like way. And that's just such good writing, insanely good writing with that, because there's like those moments where I remember the first time that she was done hanging out with Emil, and she hadn't learned the word bye. And right when Emil was about to log out, Sergey was like, oh, I added this word. And then she's like, oh, bye. And it was like she was so stoked that she could say goodbye to her friend. And it was like really sweet. And then there's the moments when, when Shizuka came in and was like accusing her, and she couldn't verbalize anything, and she hadn't had, it's just so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, the sprite work, the facial mug shots that they got going on. I wasn't really into them at the start of the game, but they definitely characterize people like Leah very well, especially later on.
Yeah, just very interesting to write a character that can only communicate with just that select few words and mostly like head nods and saying her own name like a Pokemon.
I love that her own name was that. Yeah, that's just good.
That became her catchphrase, her expletive.
And yeah, like it's cool how you as a player almost have to fill in the blanks of how her character behaves in a way, like, or what she's thinking, because she can't really verbalize anything. So you kind of have to fill like it's she's really pretty complex in a way, in that way. She's cool.
Yeah, so like what did you guys think about like the 4 original coders of the CrossCode of the game, the developers, I should say?
They were a good cast, I think, for the plot and everything, and I'm glad that they weren't more of a focus, even though, in some ways the plot revolved a lot more around them than it did you, but then the story really more or less is about Leah and her friends and her experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I really like that about the game overall, is that you have a plot that's just in service to these characters.
Yeah, like the writing. Yeah, the writing is so good. I'm very into the story developments and the focus on Leah and her coming. Like, there's a lot of lines that are really interesting in the game, like just lines that people would say in passing, like, "Oh man, I'm so busy. I don't have time to log into this game," or whatever. And you're like, this isn't a game to Leah. Like, this is her real life.
Yeah.
And these, like, it's funny that people will say something in passing that makes it just seem like their real life is more important than this game.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that like hits Leah extra hard or whatever, but it's really, really sweet towards the end of the game when everyone is they're doing the exact opposite. Like, oh, this is, this is your world. We're going to fight to save, your place. And it was just really good. It's cool, like that juxtaposition between people's, real lives. And there's always the justification too for the gamer guilt. Kyle and I always talk about gamer guilt. And I remember them saying multiple times, like, oh man, I'm like wasting my life playing this game, but I'm having fun. So does that make it worth it?
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's there's a lot of interesting things that they kind of discuss in the game.
There's a lot of good meta commentary, and it's all very good. Even the stuff in passing, I listened to all the NPCs, and there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about the Evotars as a character? Like a virtual intelligence organism, I guess, since they're confined entirely to the CrossCode server. They're not exactly able to like bridge into like reality. They couldn't exist outside of like that magnetic field or whatever that allows that powder that the Evotars are made of to like have mass and like coalesce as a character.
Yeah.
It's a complicated question.
Yeah, I feel like Leah, it's all about life, right? What do you consider what do you consider life to be? And some of those Evotars that you meet in the Vermilion Wasteland, like, are they even? They seem broken. You know what I mean? Like the only Evotars that you really interact with that are like seem conscious of their existence is like basically the Lucas Evotar and yourself. And then everyone else is, and in Satoshi, he made an Evotar of himself to continue his work. Other than that, it doesn't seem like a lot of the Evotars that are in the Vermilion Wasteland even are aware that they're alive or anything, because they're just busted.
Yeah, and Lucas, I think, they made a CrossCode of him at the exact moment or I think they must have done that really close to when he was taken with Leah. Because
the real Lucas wasn't taken. I think he just must have been.
The Evotar Lucas knew that they were in the raid together.
Yeah.
So therefore, I think they must have done that specifically, like to mess with Leah.
Very possible.
But yeah, I think Evotars, when I think of Leah, I know that I obviously has some cognizant thought. She knows, she can understand that she exists, and she knows human emotions and empathy, and she understands basic things like that. So I think she's definitely, if she's the prototype, there can only be good things coming from Evotars, I'd say, Like I think they have every right to continue, living and having a zone for themselves, and able to be alive in CrossCode world. What the fuck is it called? What's the world in CrossCode called? Is it called the Playground by everyone?
The Playground, they're on Shadoon, which isn't even the real name. In the game, it's called Shadoon, and then it's not called that in the real world.
It's in the real world. It's actually off the coast of Iran.
No, it's like still a moon or something, but it's called a different name. And then the virtual area on the croissant is the Playground, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think they deserve to be saved and further developed, I suppose.
It's the classic artificial intelligence story, I think. If you've seen or watched any other media about AI, the positives and negatives of where it could possibly go. So I think it's really a question I certainly wouldn't be able to answer, but Leah is for sure a good positive influence.
Yeah, and definitely like the very end of the game, like when you finally clear the dungeon and you actually beat the final boss, you based on some of your actions in the game, you can it determines your fate, basically the fate of all Evotars, whether or not they were able to make like a good enough impression on the players and especially the founders of the game to basically like keep them around. So the outcome that I got in my playthrough was the bad ending, but they also give you a chance though to continue back and get the good ending.
Okay.
In like a separate sort of timeline-esque thing.
I was curious about that.
So you at first you didn't talk to Albert and whatnot?
Yep, nope, I did not talk to him and didn't really understand like what they were having me do in that new that beta area. Like I went in and I explored the area fairly well, but I just must have not seen that guy and not interacted with him. And because of that, I got this awful ending the first time through.
Oh,
man.
Man.
It was sad.
That's
like,
fucked.
Because in the bad ending, literally the founders of the game just decide, no, let's not keep Evotars. And they also say that we can't even keep the Evotars that were created. They make you wipe all the files of all the Evotars, effectively deciding whether artificial intelligence is life or not. And they decided, no, it is not life. And they just destroyed it all.
Wow.
And deleted the memory files.
Oh,
so they couldn't even keep
Leah's
them on
just
dry storage.
Erased.
Yeah, in the bad timeline.
That's extremely sad. I had no idea about that.
So I was wondering, like, that seemed missable. That seemed like a side thing.
Well,
because
it didn't seem that way to me, but when I opened my journal after I went back in time, to do post-game content, my journal said something that didn't happen. It described what Kiowa said, even though I got a good ending.
Weird. That's really strange.
Yeah.
They literally decide to destroy all of the Evotars because you weren't able to make a good enough, impression on the player base.
They make a point to go, ooh, Albert's gonna meet with one of his friends. He's going here, and then they like say it multiple times. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, go find Albert for something or whatever. But you can also just go to the dungeon at the same time.
Yep.
And that's where the point of no. That's right before the point of no return. And I was like, okay, interesting. But that's fucked up and sad.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting to have multiple endings, although I don't know exactly what the point of having the bad one is other than to make you feel bad for not going and doing the other thing.
Right. And honestly, like, the flow of the game, it seemed like they were just talking about stuff to me. And that's why I didn't, like, go and see that guy. I thought that they were just kind of having a conversation about, some more cool stuff that's going on in the game world. I did not think it would have such drastic consequences.
Yeah.
Because it seems like
a lot of those.
Yeah, you're just like on this track the whole game, and like 95% of the game, it's all the same, but only this one tiny little set of actions that you can do will actively make a difference in Leah's fate. So
that's very strange. Yeah, like that just seems like another kind of world building type thing where they'd be like, he's just going to hang with his bros. And then you're like, okay, cool, he can go hang with his bros. And that's really weird. And especially that it seems to be the one sort of optional story thing that you can do. Story absolutely. Thing.
I find it very weird that it's optional, but I mean, I guess I was just exploring anyway. I ran across them. It felt very natural that was the intended, mandatory progression for the game.
Yeah, I guess it's only your choice in the loosest sense of the word.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you don't do it, it's game over. Real game over.
No one in there, no one would ever do that on purpose. No one would ever want to get the bad ending after going through all that.
Yeah.
No one would ever go, I don't want the Evotars to, you're not going to go through the whole fucking last dungeon, fight the last boss to just have that.
Yeah, that seems extremely strange.
There should be an ultra bad ending that ends in the death of all of those lizard people as well.
Sergey gets executed.
He gets caught and
transgression.
Oh
found.
my god. Yeah. A nuclear bomb is detonated.
The playground
You
destroyed.
have to play a rhythm game to survive it.
No.
Real people are taken to the island and forced through the dungeons.
Yeah.
Though I guess that wouldn't actually work, though, because they couldn't actually set foot on that land.
Yeah, that's
like
right. It'd
like
shatter.
Gotham did at the end.
Gotham, what a fucking insane guy.
Yeah, that was a little wacky.
His cat's just chilling out next to him, but
He become as gods in game.
yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that? Do you think? Well, there you go. That's another interesting thing about life, right? I feel like he'd obviously rather live in the game as a god. I wonder if he'd rather just live in the game than in real life as like a normal, like as an evotar.
It seems that he answered that question for us. It's
Fucking
like some
killed
people get
himself.
so absorbed into what they're doing that the real world doesn't matter to them anymore. But
But he didn't even build an evotar of himself like Satoshi did.
yeah, he probably
Yeah.
fucking should have.
Yeah. That seems like what a real villain would have done. They would have made like a Horcrux of themselves or something that would just remain in the game to preserve their digital legacy or whatever.
He didn't seem like too much of a big villain, though.
No,
Yeah, he
he
wasn't
really
the
wasn't
villain.
bad, other than he was torturing artificially intelligent organisms.
He had a hand in that for sure.
He was a participant,
he
but
was responsible.
yeah, clearly he wouldn't.
That was just
he wasn't
the-
enjoying it or anything.
That was just the corporate side of CrossCode, though, making him do it.
And what about Sidwell?
Oh,
I couldn't even remember his name. He's a weird villain.
Yeah,
He's
he
an
didn't really-
anti-villain.
It's. I swear, man. I feel like. Well,
Maybe a non-villain is a better word. He just kind of like existed, and he was literally just representing the interests of the shareholders and just trying to make the game like as interesting as possible. And he like spotted this huge potential HR problem, which is the evotars. Yeah, he's kind of, I guess he's more of like a Pontius Pilate figure where like the choice was kind of up to him. Like he ended up being the whistleblower that in my timeline destroyed all of the evotars, I suppose. So he definitely had some blood on his hands in that scenario. But if the evotars, could convince the world of their good, then they could basically, then he doesn't have to make the bad choice either. He gets
he made the bad choice.
I suppose.
'Cause
Yeah,
he was-
he did.
He was responsible for. He said, "Ooh, evotars! How can I make a quick buck?
Yeah.
Oh, let's torture them to get information from their knowledge of the player's life, and then sell
Yeah.
it on the black market. Like that's so fucked."
Okay, yeah, I suppose he's not so much of a non-villain after all, but
Yeah, he's pretty villainous.
yeah.
But like, I just think he in the sense that I guess I would consider him a non-villain because he didn't seem to have a presence in the game. Like he was,
Yeah.
I felt like he wasn't villainous. He came in the game like at chapter 7 for one scene and then didn't show up again until like the end of the game.
Yeah, that's true.
The pacing, that's my big gripe, man. Everything post chapter 7 is just like paced so weird. It's just really strange. You got 3 dungeons in chapter 8. You got like no dungeons in chapter 9, but these little trials, which I thought it was cool. And then like a boss fight, which was kind of fun too, and then chapter 10 is just like the last dungeon. But like in between, there's not really a whole lot going on. It feels kind of rushed towards the end. But that's what I'm hoping this post-game stuff will rectify because, there's like we were talking about Citron. What the fuck is up with him? He shows up at the very end and is like...
Lamenting something about the design of the game. And
Yeah,
he's in the wasteland.
He's in the wasteland. And he said something about like, yeah, I would have said something about this or something like that about because he knew what the evotar of Lucas said. He's like, yeah, the evotar of Lucas was talking about that lake to Leah. And she was like,
That's
this doesn't
right.
really make sense. I bet Citron would have something to say about that. Lol. And then they move on. And then he's there at the end of the game like, yeah, like confirming that he knew that somehow.
That is interesting. I did not recognize that detail, but yeah, very, very suspicious how he was gone that whole time.
Yeah, there's got to be this post-game thing will hopefully... Maybe it's a little weird to look at the game as a complete package right now.
Yeah, because honestly, like the most, like how everyone wants to know how does it end, but it's just this big build-up, and then this, like the second climax of the game, basically it happens, and then currently the outcome is barely known.
Yeah,
like in my first timeline was the just the awful timeline. All Evotars are gone, so that's the end of it. But then in the good timeline, which is arguably the true ending of the game, then Leah is back, and she'll be. But even in that one, they just said that she'll be reinstated in just a matter of months or something. So you can't even actually play after that. So you can't find out what happens next. It feels like they did like intentionally stop short. And I guess the fact that this game has been out for so like long already, and they still don't have this post-game episode like they promised, I think that means that it's going to be a pretty big deal when they release it. Like that's why I was thinking that they might even do a second game.
Yeah, okay.
And just call that the post-game episode.
Yeah, I wonder how big... There's a lot. I feel like there's just more that can be going on, and I just wish the pacing was a little bit better towards the end, and I don't know. Like, I really hope this post-game episode clarifies a lot and justifies a lot, too.
I didn't have too much of a problem with the pacing, I guess, but my playtime was broken up so strangely that, especially Chapter 8, it was obviously long and whatever, but once I was already nearly done with it by the time I got back to playing really again, and everything else was smooth sailing to me. Mm-hmm. And the ending, I liked the ending, but when you put it in that frame of Leah's not even there at the end, and there's this time gap, and we don't know truly what was up with Trani, I guess in a way, yeah, it almost does feel like there's more to be known, but I still like the conclusion. It does feel mostly complete to me.
It's pretty bare bones, I feel, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think it felt good to me.
Yeah, it does feel like you did something for sure. I don't know. I guess what you were saying about smooth sailing, I think that might be the issue for me. Was like, yeah, it was way fast to get through. After Chapter 8, it was like a blink and you're done with the game, basically. And I just think that was just kind of weird. And it felt like they could have a little more exposition or anything. I mean, there was a big scene in the old hideout in Chapter 9. It just felt like there was only just a handful of nice scenes at the end sort of explaining what the plan is. Everything felt really thrown together at the end, I think. It was like the whole Evotar conundrum. It just felt like the last maybe, couple hours of the game. It was thrown into the limelight. And same with like maybe there wouldn't even be need for a post-game chapter if they didn't show like Citron at the end, or decide to take him out for some reason at the end, and just let you keep playing after you reinstate all the Evotars. Like if that was the case, you wouldn't even need a post-game thing. If it was just like, she gets reinstated today, wahoo, and then you log in and you can do all the end game like post-game content.
Yeah, just a few more scenes of dialogue, pretty much just saying, "Oh, Leah, I can't believe you're back. Oh, let's go do a raid or something." And then they just code a raid into the game, or they build a couple new bosses, and maybe afterwards that area that was in beta is developed or something. And then you can go down there, and there's like end game dungeons and raids and all sorts of like high tier loot and stuff. All those shops are open. Yeah, I feel like they could have just tied a nice ribbon on it very easily. But the fact that it's taking them like when did this game come out?
2018, I think. Something.
Yeah, I believe it's 2018. And with COVID
yeah,
this year, I'm sure it's been delayed, whatever their plans were.
Mm-hmm. It's just interesting, this post-game thing. Like, you can almost... It seems like if you just change some minor things, then you don't even need it.
That's true.
If you take out the Citron thing, if you take out the fact that you can't play as Leah at the end, it seems like everything's wrapped up. And so this post-game thing, I don't know if it'll justify its own existence, and I hope it does.
The way I look at it is, I like the mystery of Citron. I don't need a conclusion to that personally, and if you consider the factor of time in this game and how they were trying to be consistent, if it's gonna take a long time for them to decide and bring Leah back in the game, suddenly remember that dungeon that didn't go anywhere in Sapphire Ridge? Now, what are they gonna have to say about that? All these content updates characters in the game are talking about. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to consider in that small decision.
It's just it's a weird decision for sure to make the post game thing be a story, addition. But I'm hoping it's good. I hope it's not bad. Is that fair? Is that fair of me to say?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Who knows how substantial it will be.
When the post-game content comes out, I wonder if the outcome of that will change anything of the major plot. Like, will there be some really serious stuff? Because it's all going to be technically canon, though, right? Anything in the post-game episode. So I just feel a little bit sad not knowing fully how things will wrap up.
Yeah, it feels incomplete just with the little teasers they made at the end. Like, you achieve what you want, but then they put a little some carrots on string, and now we're like, what? There can be more? I need to see more if they're gonna tease it.
Yeah,
right.
And now we gotta wait. You
can just assume that it's a happy, wonderful ending, or a horrible, terrible ending if you got my version of it. But otherwise, you just gotta wonder what is in that post-game episode.
Well, look at it like this. Imagine the game just ends with whatever ending you got, and Citron making his statement, and then there wasn't that post-game bridge, and we didn't know about post-game. What if we just didn't know about it?
There's got to be a sequel.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all I would think.
Yep.
And I think their issue is mentioning or like having it in game already before it's there, because that's a very early access thing. They're giving the wrong impression, I think. Okay,
let's talk about the last dungeon. I gotta be honest. I gotta be real honest, and I gotta kind of out myself here, okay? And I'm ashamed of it, but I have to bring it up. You guys ready for this big
I'm ready.
show?
Is this going to tie into other dungeons as well, or are we specifically focused?
It's specifically for the last dungeon for me.
Okay.
And I feel pretty bad about it, but I had to do it, okay?
Okay.
Fuck. Never mind. I'm going to edit this out in post. Forget it. Let's keep going. Let's keep talking.
I thought I'm going to out myself, but you'll hate me for it. Okay? Is that okay?
Sure.
I thought the last dungeon was weak because it was too easy.
Yeah, I think... Listen. I think the last dungeon was easy.
Yeah. Okay.
I liked the little mechanic that they added.
Yeah.
Like the little shield absorber thing. I think that was cool, and the way it was used in boss fights was cool too.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not alone.
Kiowa,
Oh, sure.
What about you, man?
Yeah, I actually kind of struggled with the last dungeon. It was particularly that one puzzle right before you advance to the final boss of the tower.
Yep. That's what my thing was about.
I cannot even begin to imagine how many times I repeated that puzzle. Just like moving stuff, and it was at the point I've been using a controller all game. I don't know if you guys have been using mouse and keyboard.
Yes.
Controller? Okay, well, I had a hard time reacting on my controller fast enough to like move my like reticle and my sights to like shoot all of the blocks and the magnets and everything that I needed to shoot right. So I had to switch to my keyboard in order to like aim quicker and like more precisely. Yeah. So once I finally started doing that, it was much easier to get through that stage, but it still just took me so long.
What were you going to say about it, Cole? You had more to say before.
Yeah. the everything before that is obviously them trying to bring in facets of every element together, but then they still cordon off each, room to just one or two elements. So, they could have utilized it more. But then you see, oh, they saved it all for this big final puzzle. Now you have to swap between elements very quickly. You have to, and a recurring thing in the game is it's not just a puzzle based on logic. You also have to react in time with that logic to get it down. Mm-hmm. And this was such a big puzzle. They lampshaded in game with Sergey mentioning something about it. It's either you sit there for a long time and try to figure it out, or you do it right away and you feel guilty because everybody else had a hard time with it. My heart was beating so fast on that last one when I cleared it.
Yeah, there was certain things that I was definitely able to probably have a super easy time with that jumping technique, because I was able to jump across I know they wanted me to go a certain way, but I was able to just launch myself across these huge gaps and find my way onto all sorts of platforms, and sometimes get around obstacles and dungeons if it allowed for it. But yeah, definitely that last one is the probably the one that I struggled with the most of any puzzle in the game.
I used to like those. I used to like those gauntlet puzzles at the end of each dungeon.
Oh yeah.
But I thought they were cool. It was like it was fun. It was like a fun challenge, but I just got I coined a term. I coined a term that I wrote down in my notes.
Oh boy.
Once chapter 8 came around, I call it puzzle fatigue. I got so fucking sick of these long ass puzzles and just taking so long trying to figure them out. Once chapter 8 came and you had to do 3 of those huge gauntlet puzzles, and then or was there one in the last dungeon in the Grand Temple?
I don't think there was a big massive puzzle like that. No,
there was in the other 2 for sure, because they're at the end of each dungeon.
Yeah,
but this last one was it was so fucking frustrating because of the controller thing too. And if you make one mistake, you got to reset all the stupid fucking things back to their spots. You have to switch everything that you changed once already to try to get to where you fucked up. It's it was really frustrating, but I think those puzzles are good. But the thing that I have to reveal is that I changed the puzzle speed down for that last puzzle. I turned it to 50%, and I feel like a cheater.
What?
But I was getting so fucking
There's
sick
a lot to unpack here, but go on.
Yeah.
Go on if you have more.
You can change the puzzle speed.
You can change the puzzle speed in the options, yeah.
If I would have known that...
at the beginning of the game, they give you a meter for it, right? When you first start?
Yeah.
And I want to say very quickly that I really liked it because there is an error on that. They mention on that meter, they say, the game is intended at 100%, but turn it down if you want. There's no judgment there. If you need it or you want it, just do it. There doesn't need to be elitism about it.
Yeah, and I turned mine down to, I think it was either 50 or 60% for that puzzle, and then I beat it. I beat it right away. But it just changes the speed of the the last puzzle specifically didn't even feel like a brain teaser. It wasn't
it was very direct. It was a very direct path to what you needed to do. It's just a matter of reaction time. And boy, if I would have known that there was that slider, I would have loved to turn it down because because of the struggle of it. And especially the game, I will say, can be definitely hard to play, especially if you're working or you're really busy, got a lot of stuff going on.
Headaches. We all had headache stuff, and it was you don't want to do a fucking huge dungeon puzzle gauntlet when you have a headache.
Yeah, and that's when everything was colliding for me, and I was just super busy with work, had a ton of stuff going on.
There's a reason this episode's been delayed, and it's it's these things are. Some of this is hard. This is a hard game.
Yeah, I'm honestly very surprised by how difficult this game has been compared to games that I'm used to playing. You know,
It's
like,
good. I think, like I said, man, those gauntlet puzzles feel so good when you best them. But I just felt like guilty as fuck turning my thing down on this very, like, I got through the whole game, and then I was just so fed up with it. And because it was, yeah, like I said, I knew the solution. I just was having this aiming trouble with my controller, switching to the elements and getting everything in position just in time. And I was just like, that's when I sent you, Cole, on Discord. I was like,
well, maybe 50% was a bit overkill if you wanted to keep any pride and feel less guilty about it. But regardless, the controller thing is a for sure issue. You know, it can't be helped when you know in your head, I can do this, but not everyone is capable, and sometimes it's just your tools. The controller thing is a problem throughout the whole game, and it's so easy to see how it would be a problem there when your reactions need to be tight.
yeah, tight. And then, I don't know about you guys, but that last boss took a long fucking time.
I was looking at the clock while I was on that boss, and it took me literally a full half hour to beat.
Yeah, it was like so long, and I felt it was kind of a slog too, because you fight the dude in his first form. You fight him 2 times, I think, in the game before.
Yeah.
Or is it just 1?
Well, you fight him at the
2 times.
start, I think, but they completely amp it up by like multiple factors each time.
Yeah. And I just didn't like the last boss too much, but it was kind of cool. It just had that same thing where they wanted you to sit through all these phases, and it felt like really too drawn out.
For the last boss, I completely agree. I don't have an issue with the other ones, but that last boss is excessive.
Yeah, it's like the last boss has like 20 he has so many little bars, and you can't bring them down past the 1 threshold. And it takes the last one with the elephant, the final phase, it took so long to wear his shit down for me. And I was just like trying to break him for so long, avoiding all his attacks. I got to tell you, that green tea I tried that I liked, that shit saved me in that last battle. In that last bottle, that bottle of green tea really saved me in that last battle.
Yep. Green tea was so good because the damage is so like spaced out in that fight. So the green tea, the regeneration you get from that is just next level. But yeah, though, honestly, that fight, I found it to be pretty intense because when I realized the time commitment of that fight, when I got down to like the last 3 like bars of his health, I was like, what if he just has a sudden spike in power and starts doing hella big damage? And I came very close, being super undergeared for the fight. I came very close to dying a few times in the last couple bars, so it was really intense for me.
Yeah, and that fight has the thing. It has that thing where you have the exponential power growth.
Yeah.
You need to kill these little guys. So then even if you expose his weakness or get a chance to attack him, you can't do any break damage or anything unless you're like full power.
That's dumb too.
And that was stupid as hell. Like I wasn't into that. But otherwise, I thought it was, the attacks were cool. Like the whole fight itself was fun and like kept me on my toes, and each of the attacks and reactions and dodges, all that was fun to play with, but to play against. But then, you had to wait for him to put his little balls down. And then even if you get the power things, the balls still attack you while you have your precious chance to like attack him after you break his gauge or whatever.
They become intangible at that point too. You can't even get rid of them.
Yeah, you can't get rid of them or get a power boost, but they still like hit you if you're trying to, exploit his finite time of I don't know. It just felt like they didn't really know when to stop.
Yeah, even in the story, it doesn't make too much sense, as Gotham wanted that. He designed it to be over the top in every way for the ultimate experience. But you'd think that he would make it beatable at that point. Why would he want to just annihilate you with all this bullshit at the end if it was supposed to be fun for everybody?
Yeah, he's playing too much Dark Souls too.
Yeah, a little bit.
And he's like, let's just make this shit dumb as hell.
I think the last boss is significantly more tolerable, and even, as we were talking earlier, the pacing of the later chapters is when the culmination of a lot of side quests happen, and they add a lot more flavor and equipment that help you get through the game more easily, I think.
It just sucks the time commitment of side quests, because a lot of them are fucking slogs too.
Yeah.
Some of them are, for sure.
felt so dumb. Like, there are some good ones, but the amount of just... They just were so long. I don't know why they were so drawn out and just felt like time sinks that I just kind of stopped doing them all the time.
Yeah, like the one I tried to keep up with side quests a lot, but when I got to the jungle zone and there was that side quest with all like the city like mob and stuff going on there, like I'm sure that's how you unlocked that like second market area or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just never had. I was like, I'd rather continue the plot than like who would logically, like, at knowing what they knew at that point in the game, like decide to go and do a bunch of little like silly in-game side quests when the stake of when artificially intelligent organisms' lives are at stake. So
that's the JRPG thing. Like, the world is always at stake. So, and then you're sitting there grinding and like getting equipment for like fucking 60 hours before saving the world. It's just an RPG thing for sure, but it's really funny to look at it through that lens. But yeah, I gotta give the game props though. There was a good variety of side quests for the most part.
Definitely.
Like, it wasn't all just like go kill these guys or go run and pick this item up. There were like cool challenges and timed combat things and defense things and other things like that.
I particularly liked the the encyclopedia style quest that given by that one guy who's always messing around with that little device. Then he just wants you to go collect the fauna, rocks, all this different stuff, for certain areas. And I eventually found that his home was in Sapphire Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
He's not part of the game. He's illegally gathering information of the game too, if you follow that side quest.
But he like has an operation set up at like the Sapphire Ridge zone too, in that.
And you
dojo.
guys finished that one, right?
That's another thing. Is he an NPC?
You guys didn't finish that or what?
I don't think I finished the whole quest line.
Oh boy.
Let's hear it.
That one is very interesting. And I think really quickly I want to just say about what you mentioned before is that I think there's only a couple side quests that really felt like slogs. And it's almost all Chapter 8 for me. I think everything else paid off. This one paid off very well because you learn from that guy, that admin that follows you around. He mentions, this guy isn't in the registry. I can't log him off or anything. He must be a real person in the game.
Yeah. And
you go to his hideout, and it's all a setup. It's all a quest to make you think he's a hacker, but it was all just for fun.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I was about to say, so even the developers of the game break the fourth wall for players.
And not even the admins know about it. This little Easter egg.
It's a very fun quest, I think, with a good ending.
That's cool.
Well, fast forward to the post-game episode, and that guy is sitting there, and he's like, ha, those stupid Evotars. They think that I'm just an NPC, but in reality, I've been pulling the strings the whole time.
He's Citron.
Oh my god, that would be insane. But yeah,
that's cool. Like, I didn't realize that.
That's funny.
It's just like a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I think what put me off was that goat quest in chapter whatever, and the one where you just follow that goat around forever, and then there's ones where you like have to. There's just so many dumb fucking quests, and it just didn't seem like they would pay off to anything for me.
I didn't think there were very many dumb quests. I think the most obnoxious ones were in Gaia's Garden because that place is so huge, and it was just frustrating to navigate it for so long. But the rest seemed, over in a flash.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't. I'm glad they turned out to be something substantial, but it always seemed like foiled again. We missed this guy. We'll have to get him when you beat the next dungeon. And then it was just like, oh, great, more. It didn't seem like it was going to pay off to anything other than, meager amounts of experience and money and
Well,
some
you might have thought
items.
that about Leah's amnesia and the coma and everything too. Wrote that off.
Sure, that's the main story though. That's not an optional. That's not optional content that I have to
I'll
like.
say
sit.
that the Dakar quest, where you're collecting the broken weapons from those really complex puzzles, and I had to, I couldn't even figure out where to go for one of them at least, and I had to look that up. That one for sure did not end satisfying for me. I thought that
really?
one
That's
was
the
the
one that
biggest.
I thought-
That was the biggest letdown because it had the biggest build up.
Yeah, that's the one I was like, I want to keep doing this, but yeah, I got stumped on it too.
Yeah, I
And
never was
like,
able to finish that one either. Why was it such a letdown?
It ends up he's like, oh, I just misunderstood my kids. They'll hang out with me whenever. And then they walk off. And then you have like this building you can go into. And I thought maybe, oh, it's a dungeon. And you have to go and get some of the guild members together for it too. So it's kind of like bringing in the main story elements too. And then you just go in the building. It's instanced. It's one room. You get some CP and a little bit of lore. And it's it. It's over.
Wow.
Nice.
I think
that
that
sucks.
was a very big letdown in terms of the side quests.
No broken
Yeah.
weapons assembling into one mega.
Those are the
crazy
keys.
weapon.
Those are the keys to open the place you go into. And then it's, the lore of the game in the end is dressing. It's inconsequential. All the stuff that they wrote, none of it matters in the grand scheme. And so getting more of that felt very hollow.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. I just didn't. I wanted to devote my playtime to other stuff.
Yeah,
other than side quests.
No judgment there. I would disagree in that the side quests were bad. I liked pretty much the majority of them.
Yeah, and my preferred means of leveling anyways was just straight combat, because it was just fun to run around and just get just those huge combos of enemies destroyed.
And the music gets so good, dude, when you're in that S rank. Oh, that S rank music song that plays, the musical number.
Yeah.
Damn.
I love how the game even like pauses when you get into S rank so that you know how serious it is.
Yeah.
It's an experience to get into an S rank.
Oh my god. Okay, we got to talk about the music because the soundtrack in this game is fucking.
It's
really,
very-
really,
yeah.
really
so
good.
Especially the songs out in Sapphire Ridge. Woo.
Sapphire
There's
Ridge
a
was
lot
good.
of standouts too, even among a good and great soundtrack.
Dude, Bergen Village.
That was a real good tune, Berrigan Village.
I think that might be one of my favorite songs. This is just like, the music was always really, really good. It just, I never felt like there was anything out of place. I did have this weird bug. I don't know if you guys had it. It would be this weird music looping bug. You guys have any music looping issues? Or did your music loop excellently, perfectly?
Well,
I
if
don't
they're-
recall anything.
If there were bugs, I didn't notice them.
It's a music. Yeah, my music sometimes it wouldn't seamlessly loop. It would
Oh.
trail. It would trail off, and then the song would also start again while it was trailing off. So it would be two layers of things, like the song happening at different times, and it would be really fucked up.
Wow.
Really fucked up.
Okay.
To you.
A loop
If that
It was
happened,
like-
I didn't notice it somehow because it doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, it was strange.
that-
I didn't know what was causing it.
Yeah, I don't think that happened to me, but I could imagine that happening and being pretty frustrating or weird.
Yeah, it was bad.
There was a lot of in the soundtrack. There were certain songs that gave you like the Metroid All Alone in Space sort of vibes. The whole game's very Zelda-like, so there were some upbeat sort of symphonic Zelda tunes. There's so much inspiration and leitmotif in the soundtrack. I love the whole thing. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
And
well
it's-
done soundtrack.
It's on Spotify and you can buy it too.
It
just
is on Spotify?
It's on.
Fuck
You can
yeah.
listen to the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh my
Awesome.
gosh. Good to know.
It all goes back to the labor of love. Like, this is the music and art and story and everything works together in such a caring a way that that these people cared a lot about this game. Everything is just so coherent. It's just really good. It's really, really good.
There's some post game stuff too that they didn't really quit on it afterwards, which is why I have high hopes for the post game episode, but there's a quest that you break through the boundaries of the game with this like anthropomorphic animal guy. And that was really awesome and funny, and I don't know if you guys did that or the other one where you have to collaborate with people who have the console version of the game to get the secret into this extra dungeon that's just so silly.
Oh, wow.
That sounds good. Yeah, maybe I'll have to check those out.
And the arena and all the cosmetics. There's very cool things that came out even after the game launched. So if someone hadn't played since then, that's worth revisiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be looking forward to a CrossCode 2.
Me too, honestly.
Very much if there's any sort of follow-up, but how could they possibly match the scale of the plot like this one?
Or if Radical Fish Games is listening to this podcast right now, and I know they are, I'd play your CrossCode Online if you would make some sort of online iteration of that game.
Please make CrossCode Online.
Yes.
Please. I mean, this is their first game. Is this their first game?
It?
Radical.
I'm not sure.
On the Steam store, it says it's their only game, and that's fucking insane.
Wow.
I mean, maybe the people who are involved have made other games, but as a studio, Radical Fish Games, like, this is like, I'm excited to see what other stuff they end up making, because this is such a good, cohesive package.
I was thinking about, how rare it is to have a game where I'm invested in the plot anymore enough to keep reading it. I'm over halfway into it, and how few games it seems like I play where I'm constantly thinking and reacting all the time in the combat like I am in CrossCode. This might have made, one of my top lists of games like ever. Because
wow.
I really, really was enamored with this game.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
It was an understatement. When you guys told me, hey, we played this, we liked it, let's do a podcast on it, and I looked at the screenshots and thought, it looks cool. I did not know what I was in store for.
I remember specifically even saying, this is a game for Cole.
Yeah?
This is like, I was like, Cole would like this game too. It did seem like it was right up your alley.
It does have platforming in it.
It has platforming in it, and it's good.
Okay,
also, it's a good game.
I'm on the main site for Radical Fish Games, and apparently a few things. Leah's an unlockable character in One Step from Eden.
Correct. Yes, she is. I've played that game too, and it's a good one.
And the post-game DLC looks like it's going to be raid heavy or boss heavy or something, and the bosses look amazing.
Fuck
like
yeah.
real,
Yes,
like we're talking real bosses this time around.
Good.
This time.
Not just big Sun Wukong bosses and a whale.
A big whale with Sun Wukong on him.
Just a whale. Just a real life whale. I think it was just called Whale in that boss fight, right?
That's cool. Yeah. Very good experience playing the game, even with all those gripes and the slowdown and kind of lack of. I had puzzle fatigue. Yep. I didn't want to play that much around Chapter 8, but it picked up again, and I, try to power through. Just try your best to power through Chapter 8 and all those puzzles.
Yeah.
It gets good.
It gets better.
It gets good.
No, it gets good in the middle, and then it kind of like falls way down for a little bit for me, and then it stands back up again. Maybe not reaching the same heights as Chapter 7 for me,
yeah.
But I think it's like I was still super invested in the story, and that's why I didn't like Chapter 8 that much, because there was not a lot of story going on.
I have no defense for Chapter 8. I think that's probably one of the biggest turnoffs in the game for me as well, if I was thinking about it. But otherwise, a lot of the problems you guys had, I was lucky enough I didn't really have them, but I played the game in a different way where I was trying to interact with everything. Mm-hmm, and I don't know if that was my saving grace or not. And the break we took in the middle of the bad chapter gave me respite from that anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of negative things to say about it. I think this game is awesome.
This is like adult Zelda to me. It's got more nuanced combat. It's got more complex puzzles, and it's got more character and plot in it. But otherwise, if you look at it a little, just about a surface level, it's like 2D Zelda. This game plays like those.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely a very interesting game to play. Something that, if you want to play a game that's totally different from, many games you've ever played, I guess if you're invested in the Dot Hack series, that's the only thing I guess that could be compared to. Yeah, it's just a fresh and very unique experience.
Yeah, lovers of Dot Hack, if you love Dot Hack, you probably won't like this game because it seems like you only love bad, shitty games. I'm just joking. No, I don't know.
I'm going to say that in the future, I think it's going to be hard to beat CrossCode.
Wow.
In my book, when we put it against other games, because it left a great impression on me. So,
dude, I'm so glad. Yeah,
I strongly recommend this game if you think you'd be into it, and turn that slider down for puzzles. Who cares? Just see it through to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, see it. It's definitely worth it. And depending on when you pick it up, hopefully that DLC chapter will be added in, and you'll just have maybe even more of a complete experience. I mean, the experience there is it's complete for sure, but they dangle little, carrots in front of you. It's showing you that there's going to be more.
There could be.
And just looking at the developer website, that post-game content is going to be very cool. So
yeah,
I'll be looking forward to it.
It's a labor of love for sure. They keep adding more stuff, so I'm sure the game is just going to keep getting better as time goes on, for sure. Well, yeah, I guess that about wraps up our talks on the video game CrossCode. I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about, and I think it was a lot of fun talking about it. This has been a long time coming too, that we've all been wanting to talk about it and kept our lips sealed.
Yep.
But yeah, what do you say we reveal the next game for the listeners?
Well, how did we get onto this game? I'm curious. What it's been so long, I forget.
Onto CrossCode?
Yeah, this was the mutual. This is the mutual.
Yep,
pick.
the mutual pick from our mutual pool of games.
And then how about the next one?
The next one, who's picking the next one?
That would be me.
Oh shit! Well, what game? What game are you picking?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
I don't know.
I'm glad you guys asked, because the next game that we will be playing in Kaiwa's first official pick of the MIDFES podcast, it's going to be Hades by Supergiant Games.
Hades by Supergiant Games.
Yeah, you got to throw that Supergiant in there because that lights people up like fireworks.
Yep.
Hell yeah. Hades, a roguelite.
I think it's the latter, yeah. But
roguelite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a bit of this game already, and I've got to say, it's a hell of a good time.
Oh my god. We need to end the episode now. We need closing statements.
Fuck this. Yeah, okay. Yeah, looking forward to it. Have a good night. Happy midnight. Whatever.
Happy midnight.